Good morning everyone, welcome to our small footprint. My name is Nyssa, and if you're new here, we are a family of 8 who live off-grid in Australia. I have been really slack with doing videos over the past few days. The weather has really changed here, it's really done its turn, so we were still getting down to like 0 overnight, 20ish during the day, and all of a sudden we're hitting 13, 14 overnight and 35 during the day, and it's just been a little hard on me that quick change. So I've been a bit flat and haven't really just had the energy to do anything. So I've got a bunch of voiceovers that I need to get done today, hopefully, and then I'll have those few videos out for this week, as well as some other bits and pieces. I still have the video that I'm putting together for the chocolate orange gluten-free chocolate orange cake that everyone requested. I haven't made it again because I just haven't felt like it, but I really need to make that again because it uses up lots of eggs, which is handy for us. But everyone wanted that one up on the website and a video for that one, so I need to get that one done this week. There's a few other bits and pieces, obviously, that just are part and parcel. But what I thought I'd do for this morning is have a quick chat to you and discuss the garden and anything else. So what I'm going to attempt to do, and we'll see if this works or not, I have my phone set up here as a camera as well that's pointing at my bench, and then I'm going to have this one set up towards me, and then I might switch between the two footages, but this is a little beyond my skill set. The other thing is that with the mics, I have 2 directional mics, which doesn't help matters with if I'm moving around. So I have been going to invest in one of the Rode wireless mics. I just haven't got around to it, though I did notice that they had a newer model out, an ME that's a more simplified model, which is probably fine for me. So maybe I'll afterpay that one, because coming into spring and summer, it's going to be more important to be able to put the camera stationary and still be able to hold a conversation with you guys while I'm walking. In winter, it wasn't such a big deal because most of the stuff I could do standing at the camera, and but it will make it a little bit easier, I think, on me to have the ability to walk away from the camera and still have good sound on verbal as well. Maybe. We'll see. Videography and editing and stuff is definitely something that I would like to get better at. It's something that I am very mediocre at, and so as time progresses and I have more time to put into making videos and things like that, then I hope to get a little bit better at it. So every time I think about how I'd like something to look, I try and make the effort to think about how I would implement that and then try and see how I go, and most of the time it doesn't work, which is why my camera is aimed at my kitchen bench most of the time, and I do voiceovers because that's just the simplest thing for me to accomplish. The other thing is that we haven't put the second shelf up in the hothouse yet, and at the moment this is the eastern wall, so this wall is quite sunny, which is the only bench that I've got to work at the moment, which means that my phone might overheat too. So we shall see how that goes. We are behind shade cloth, which helps, and it's not overly hot to work in here yet this morning. It's early. Darryl and some of the kids are at church, and the other 3 kids are inside doing dishes. So I'm just going to do... So the first thing I've got on my plans today is to pot up some leggy tomatoes. So I have plenty of tomatoes, but one of the tomato types that didn't germinate very well, we had an issue with some heat mats and a frost when we first did it, and we lost a whole lot, with the Tommy Toes. Now, Tommy Toes are an awesome cherry tomato. They're a large-ish cherry tomato, and they're really prolific, and they tolerate a whole lot of conditions and things like this. This was saved seed, and because it was saved seed, I saved it on paper towel, which meant that it was quite densely planted in this little pot for germination. So I'm going to go through it and pot up a bunch of these for growing further, probably into a cell tray because they're still pretty small, and that takes up less room because I am running out of room pretty drastically in here too. I have a lot of tomatoes and zucchini that are ready to go out in the garden, but I can't put them out yet because either the beds haven't been finished for the relevant ones, or we don't have trellising where I need them, or I'm going to try and grow the zucchini vertically this year, which means I need to put a stake in before I plant the zucchini plant. And Darryl is going to Toowoomba on Tuesday, so he'll go to Bunnings on Tuesday because he has a medical appointment, and he'll grab me bits and pieces that I need. So the IBCs, let me start this and I'll keep talking while I do this because that was the plan. So the IBCs haven't been finished because we ran out of ag pipe for the bottom of them. So Darryl has to pick up some more ag pipe. I did order some for in town because there's a Mitre 10 in town that does have it on their website, but they didn't have any in stock in MILLMERRAN. So they have to order it in. And they said that, and it said sort of 5 to 9 days for ordering in. So we will see what happens with that as to how long it takes. But I only ordered 2 for there because I knew that we'd go into Toowoomba at some point and I could get more then. Got the seed tray, not packed too densely because we're going to be pushing tomato seedlings in, and we want them to go nice and deep into the soil. Now, I really struggle with discussing gardening type stuff because I haven't always done well at it. So take everything I say with a grain of salt because I am still learning as well. But this year has done exceptionally well. So for my seedling mix here, what I've got is a combination of cocoa core, worm castings, and perlite with a little bit of rock minerals, and that seems to be working really well. That's another thing that I'm close to being out of, so Darryl will have to grab me a bit more. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to make holes nice and deep in the middle of the I'm going to tease these apart and put them in. So, what else? Yes, so the IBCs are still in progress because we ran out of the ag pipe. So we've got sand for them still, but we've run out of ag pipe. So we're in the process of getting that so that we can get some more of them put together. And then once we've got that done, we can start planning out of those as well. We've got 6 of the raised beds done so far. Darryl's going to do the next lot, and then we'll keep planning those out as well. But there's been a bit of a learning curve with it as well because I have always planted out here in more of a market garden-esque type situation where we just have single rows of each vegetable with a few interplantings, like always put basil and marigolds in with tomatoes and things like that, but nothing extensive. And with these raised beds, I can only have they're a lot wider, so they're 80 centimeters wide, and then only one edge will have trellising, so that's where the tomatoes will go. But then I need to have something else taking up the rest of the bed, and I've been doing a lot of reading on companion planting and things like that of what needs to go. And there's a lot of things that don't take up much space which can go in there. Radishes are suggested as a good space filler for a lot of things, and we like radishes, and I've been planting some daikon radishes as well as standard radishes so that we've got them for kimchi and fermenting and things like that. But you can only have so many radishes. So there's a lot of other things that I'm researching as to what will go well with what, and then what will fill the spaces and things like that. So it's all a bit of a new learning curve for me in that sense, because I'm so used to doing the market garden style where you just put one item in one row and that's it. So it's definitely a bit more that I have to learn, which is fine. It's always good to learn more, and companion planting and multi-sowing and all that sort of stuff is a great thing to do. It's just hasn't been what we did before because our gardens are more focused on just providing food than necessarily permaculture or diversity and things like that. Our gardens have always been aimed more at food than anything else, so it's been, hard with... I really wanted to do that market garden style that, the kind of garden where you make enough of every product that you can it all for a year, and that's not going to be the way it goes for this sort of thing, which is fine because we do have access to the fruit and veg shop and things like that, so we don't need to. This is about buffering our fresh produce in those times when we don't have any from the fruit and veg store and things like that. Having tomatoes in the garden is an amazing thing because tomatoes from a garden are you can't compare tomatoes from a garden to tomatoes that you buy in a store, no matter how fresh they are. They're just not the same as being able to grab one slightly warm from the garden, and that texture and things like that, and the variety. So I've got a lot of different tomato varieties that I'm growing. So these Tommy Toes are the large cherries, as I said, and I'll have far more than I can plant out, but I'll gift them to people in the area if they want, or they'll get scattered in places that they may not do well, but we still might get some tomatoes out of them. But I have these Tommy Toes, I have some Brandywines, some German Johnson, a few pineapples, what other varieties? I got some, and then a few different paste tomatoes, but mostly indeterminate paste tomatoes. So some Gilberti paste, some Napoli paste, some San Marzanos, that sort of thing, because I haven't had much luck with the determinate paste tomatoes previously. So I went with the indeterminate ones this year, which has its pros and cons though, because it means that they need trellising too. So that's where we're struggling a little bit with figuring out which areas we're going to be able to add trellising to and which ones we aren't, and then using the rest of the beds, because I'm not overly keen on the idea of 2 rows of trellis tomatoes unless I can access both sides of them, which is a bit of a challenge, like having trellising on both sides of the bed and you can easily walk down both sides. I suppose that would work, but at the moment that's not how most of my beds are going to work. I'm going to have to be able to access the trellising from like the whole bed from one side. So as I said, it's all a bit of a learning curve, and it's partly why I don't share too much of the gardening stuff, because I don't really know what I'm doing. Like, I've had some really good successes out here, but last year just threw me for a loop, and there was nothing worked. And so all the stuff that I'm implementing this year is still the same as what I did before, but with a few differences to try and do better than I did last year. And I'd hate to steer anyone wrong. So definitely, if you're listening and all the rest of it to me ramble, because everyone seems to like to listen to me ramble, then definitely take anything I say with a grain of salt, because everything I'm doing is learning. So Bobby did say that he reckons I should put together a bit of a video about the cost of the redo of the garden, and I will try and do that, though the only way we've been able to redo the garden the way we have is by little, by implementing little bits of things over time, using interest-free payments to buy in bulk and then pay them off and then buy the next lot of stuff in bulk and things like that. We would never have been able to do this if we had to do it in one fell swoop. So it's cost us a lot of money. It definitely has cost us a lot of money to redo the gardens like this, which is why I'm pretty desperate for it to work. But it's been spent over a long span of time as well, and paid off where needed and things like that. So getting an actual costing of it, it was probably easier said than done, but I will see what I can do. And I'll definitely, as I'm taking photos and I'm, documenting what we're doing, then at the end of the season, hopefully I'll have something that I can put together to show everyone, because it'll be really nice for me too, especially if it's successful, and to look at how I did things and that sort of thing. I've been drawing diagrams of the layout to the beds and stuff as I put stuff in there to keep track of where everything is, because labels don't really work in my garden. The children move them on me. And I only have all these white plastic labels that were free. I have a big box of them. Someone gave them to me, and they work really well, but they wash off. So eventually, throughout the season, as the season progresses, and the plants get watered, the Nico, even if it's permanent marker, gets washed off. So we then by the end of the season I have no idea. So what I've done is drawn like a diagram up of the beds as I put them in there, and then diagrammed out what I'm putting in each bed. Though of course as I change crops and stuff, that's going to be harder to track. The radishes are only going to be in there a brief period of time compared to, say, the bush beans that are also planted in that bed, or things like that. So that's going to be another thing for me to figure out how to track. I also bought a fishing scale, you know, one of the ones, the hanging scales that you then hang your fish off if you're fishing, to put out here in the hothouse. It's inside at the moment. It was a cheap one off Amazon. It was $30 and it's digital and it's waterproof. And I'm going to hang it out here with a basket. And the plan is, and maybe a whiteboard or a chalkboard, and the plan is to try and track the quantity of produce that's coming in as well. That's more for my, just because I'm a bit of a geek in that way. I don't know, I'm sure I've recommended him before, but there's a guy on YouTube, I can't think of his name, but his channel is Red Gardens, and he is in Ireland, and he does a bunch of videos because he does a whole lot of different types of garden styles. Like he does simple gardens, no-dig gardens, polytunnel gardens, and all that sort of thing. And he heavily documents everything that he does for all of those gardens, and keeps track of exactly how much he gets out of each, because he donates most of it, or I don't know how it works. It's a community garden, so the produce that he grows isn't just for him, it's for a whole range of people. So he documents how much he gets, and he does all his own seed saving experiments and growing from different varieties, and does variety trials and stuff. So like he might grow 3 different varieties of one thing and then work out which one was the most prolific for him in his climate and all the rest of it. Does different soil trials and all sorts of things. And I find him really interesting because he keeps it all documented. He has it all in spreadsheets and quantities and graphing and all that. And I find that really interesting. And I think it helps to see that when you're trying to find success in certain aspects too. Like when you change something and you can see that change and that success on a graph, for me, that works well. It's no different than cooking and stuff. I find a similar sort of a thing with cooking. So I think that that's something that I will attempt to do, though I do know that once it gets into full swing, you tend to bring buckets of produce inside and not necessarily track. But I'm canning a lot more so the last time I had a really successful garden year, we didn't can anywhere near as much. We ate most of it fresh, and that was sort of it. So I'm just hunting for the ones that have true leaves, because they're a little bit more further along. So they're the ones that I'm picking now that I've run out of room. So yeah, so last time we had a really successful garden, I wasn't canning as much and things like that. So it probably wasn't as big an issue. But this year, when trying to can things for long-term usage and that, then knowing what I get is more important and more insightful for growing things and that sort of stuff. So there we go. So that is a 40-cell tray full of the Tommy Toe. So obviously I'm not going to have enough room to put, if these all survive. Transplanting them like this, you do lose a few. They tend to damp off a little bit and things like that. So I'll probably lose a few out of here. But there was still spares, but I'm not going to plant them because 40 is well and truly enough. So this tray, I'm going to put some water in the bottom of it. And I'm just going to move this into a shaded spot in the hothouse because it came from inside. So it was on a seed shelf inside, on a heat tray and everything. So that it's going to need a little bit of babying. So I'm going to put it down low in a bit of a shaded spot of the hothouse for today. And I do need to rotate some stuff around. I may have to plant some of those zucchini out even without the stakes and add the stakes later because I'm really running short on room. Actually, I could probably plant some of these peppers out. So I've got some peppers that are well established here that could probably go in that tomato bed, was where I was thinking of putting them, in the front of the tomato bed that I don't know if I've shown on here. I think I've shown on Instagram, but not here. So I've got a whole bunch of the guajillo chilies here and some... a couple of jalapenos and a couple of Aji pineapples, and then some unknowns here. It was actually something else I'm going to do today. I have a couple of new seeds that I bought specially to try this year in peppers, and they were some of the ones that got killed off when we had the unexpected frost. So I don't know whether these ended up being those or not. So I'll plant them out with an unknown on them. We got heaps of the guajillos germinated, but these were from saved seeds from the Guajillo dried chilies as well, so we'll see how they come out. Regardless, they'll be fine. But these ones, I'm not real sure what they are. I don't have any labels on them, and that some of them are growing at a really different pace to the others, so I'll still plant them out, but I'm not sure. But what I was going to do is start a couple more of these, because that's what those would be if they're anything that isn't the standards, because this is what I started and lost with the frost. So I only have a few seeds of each because these weren't cheap, because the whole idea, it's an investment, but it's a worthwhile investment, because as soon as I manage to grow them I can save my own seeds. So the Sugar Rush Peach and the Aji Mango I might start today, and all I'll do is a bit like I did with the tomatoes. I'll fill a pot like this with soil, and then I'll just sprinkle them over the top and let them germinate inside on the heat mat, and then I'll pot them out like I just did with the tomatoes. So I'm going to start those next, I think. And then the other things I was saying, stuff needs to go out. So these are the honey nut pumpkins, and these really need to go out. I've just bottom watered all of these so they look dry on top, but they're not dry. But these are going into the tubs, and we haven't finished the tubs because of lack of the ag pipe. So until Darryl brings that ag pipe home on Tuesday, I can't get these tubs going, which is fine. They're starting to protrude roots, but they're okay. They'll manage. They're not huge. But we do have some tomatoes that are really aching for some soil too, so they need to be done. And then the zucchinis. So there's some Lebanese zucchinis there that need to go out as well. And then the next lot of zucchini I've only just germinated, so they need to be potted up shortly. They're inside at the moment. I potted up a whole bunch of my basil into little clusters so I can get them in the ground once they establish a little bit more. And the same with the watermelons. So these are all the sugar baby watermelons. They need to go into the big tubs as well. So we need to get a bunch of those tubs done. I need to have a look. I think I could put 2 or 3 maybe in each tub, because I'm pretty heavily fertilizing each tub and stuff. Like, I'm adding quite a bit into each one, and then because they're a wicking tub, they're going to have plenty of water, so I think I could probably get away with maybe 3 per tub, because if you look at like square foot gardening, which is what I'm sort of adopting this year. So let me step out of the hothouse because it's really hot in here. So previously, as I said, we've sort of done market gardening where we've done rows, so we've done everything in a distance for rows. But this year, because of the way the beds are, I'm sort of doing market garden. Sorry, I just got myself confused. I'm sort of doing square foot gardening. So I bought one of those square foot the guides, and I'm using that to a degree when I'm doing things to try and find out spacing. And especially this year where we've just built these beds, and they're very newly established and heaps of nutrients in them and stuff, then I think that the square foot gardening will work because of that, because there'll be plenty in there for them to eat. Because square foot gardening, you're planting a lot in a small space. Like, it seems like far too much in a small space, to be honest. But people do it all the time, and I think part of that is having enough nutrients in the bed to be able to tolerate that sort of dense planting. So we're giving it a go, especially this year where I've just filled the beds. They've got heaps of mushroom compost. We're using some dynamic lifter and some manure and stuff in the very bottom layers. We've got plenty of rock minerals and things like that as well. So yeah, we're going to give it a go. So let me turn you around and show you where we're at the moment. All right, so we've got this many beds in so far. We've still got to do this row here. When I do this row, I'll film us digging up and doing this row, because the ground underneath is just, yeah, it's amazing what nothing's happened and stuff. So I'll show you how we do it and how we layer in these beds. So these 2 beds are the ones that I've just planted the tomatoes in. So each one has a row of tomatoes, and I don't know if they were in last time I spoke to you guys or not, but anyway, row of tomatoes. So I've got the whole front of these beds to do, and that's where I thought I might put some peppers. I've planted them in the pots in doubles because they help hold each other up, is what I've always understood. So I don't really know how much distance each one needs, though, if it's in doubles. Like, I might put 2 rows in a similar pattern to the tomatoes. I don't know. As I said, learning this year. So anyway, I've got these 2 beds which have all the tomatoes against the trellis work ready to go, but that's only 18 tomato plants, and that's the other thing I'm struggling with, is when I used to do rows like this, I would have fit a lot more than 18 tomato plants along here. But hopefully they will have better yield on them than they did, and then that way the quantity won't be, I don't know, we're learning. Okay, so middle bed here is the one that I planted the cucumbers in. So there's a row of cucumbers that will have a string to the roof. I just haven't got there yet. I have to bring the ladder in to reach the ceiling. And then I did, with the square foot planting, I did bush beans in the middle. Now I reckon there's too many bush beans in here, to be honest, and I may have to snip some back because I think they'll crowd out. But I did it in the square foot gardening scale, but I did it like that kind of because the seed is probably, I want to say 2 years old, 3 years old, this bush bean seed, and so I didn't think that'll germinate. But we've done pretty well. Not so much in this top corner here, but I think there was 2 different bean seeds that I used as well. One's a dragon tongue and one is a strike, I think. So, which I'll see once they start beating up, and I'm guessing one of them had better germination rates than the other. So this end is a little sparse, that end's a little full. So we will see how we go. And then I have to thin out some of the radishes as we come along too, because these were the daikon radishes, so I'd imagine that they need to be thinned out quite a bit because they're a larger radish. The smaller one's not such a big deal because you can just pull them small. Both these beds are still empty. As I said, I was going to put zucchinis in there, but I don't have the stakes for them. But I think I'm going to have to just bite the bullet and get the zucchinis out. And they shouldn't grow enough within the next 3 days that I can't put the stakes in on sort of Tuesday night or whatever. And then this bed has some spring cabbages in it. So we've got just spring cabbages down the middle. As I said, I need to figure out what to put in the sides. The other thing is that this needs netting, but we don't have any saddle clips at the moment, so that's the other thing that Darryl's going to get in Toowoomba. We'll get some saddle clips so that I can put the piping over the top like I used to use over there in that mess. I used to use the piping over the top of the metal poles, but I don't want to use those metal poles in these beds. So what we're going to do is just put saddle clips on the sides of the beds and put the pipe between the saddle clips, and that will work. I did try planting some cabbage out in one of the IBCs because we got a couple of the IBCs done. But it may not have been the best spot for it because we've got some sunburn on it. So this spot might get just too much sun for spring cabbages, but we do need to net it. So I might shade cloth it instead of just insect netting, and that might be enough for it. But I wanted to see how the cabbage did in the wicking bed versus the raised bed, and that's what this was for. But it obviously gets a lot more sun just here, which makes sense because we don't have any cover over this section at the moment, but this section has some shade cloth. So I need to hoop this one as well because the cabbages for white cabbage moth. So what I might do is I might use some shade cloth instead of just insect netting over this one, and maybe that will help these go along. This bed isn't done yet either. The idea was to put some zucchini in this one as well. Again, the comparison of having zucchini on in here and in the raised beds. And then because the netting isn't very close, the trellis is quite a distance, we couldn't get the IBCs up nice and close, and we thought we could probably zip tie it. But what I've decided is on this side there's enough space that we're going to put 2 of those raised beds on this side of the trellis, and then I can run stuff up on the trellis here, which will also shade these. So zucchini might not be a good idea in this one. Maybe I will do some greens in this one, some lettuce and things like that, because when the tomatoes grow up or whatever I trellis on that side, it's going to shade this bed a bit. Have to have a think about that. So that only just came to mind then. So that has been very much just a rambling chat of the day, hasn't it? So let's get these chili seeds into a couple of pots. So I'm going to fill a couple of these squares first. So I've got a couple of pots here to do the chilies in, and all I'm going to do is pat that down a bit below the level of the pot, and then so these are the Sugar Rush, and I've only got 4 of these left, so I'm just going to plant each one, and I'm going to plant it in the corner of each. I wouldn't normally be so precious about the seeds, about placing them and getting them right, but the problem here is that this is the last 4 seeds that I have, and they weren't cheap. And I did buy some last year as well to try and do, and didn't manage it, and didn't manage to grow them last year because we had such a shitty garden season. So I'd really like, if I at least get like a couple of these to grow, then I can save seed for them and not have to buy the seed again. So I just plant them on the surface like that, and then use vermiculite on top like that, and then I will wet that down. So that was Sugar Rush. There. And then we're going to do the same here with the Aji mangoes. So I've got a few more seeds in this, but I think I'll just sow them all anyway, because it seems pointless to hold on to them regardless. Like that, peppers need to be done earlier in the season, and so we'll just do that. So I'm just going to spread them out. And there's around about 9 in there. So we'll just lightly cover them to keep the seeds moist, and then put the vermiculite on top. There we go. Oh. And we'll label those ones. Mango. Keep it nice and moist for germination, and I'll probably take these inside. It's easier to monitor moisture and stuff when it's in on the seed shells rather than out here, because I only come out here twice a day. So they're nice and moist. The soil was moist that I put in them as well, and then the vermiculite will hold some moisture on top for those too. So those are done. The only other thing I had here was some Kellogg's breakfast tomatoes. These are again a specialty one that I ordered because I wanted to try them, and none of them survived. So I'm going to do the same thing for these ones. And if I can get a couple to survive, then I can save seed, and if not, then no. I like to try a couple of different types of tomatoes every year, because it's just fun. Tomatoes are a fun thing to grow. So there were 6 of these, so we will see if we can get a couple of those to do what they need to do. So I think that's sort of all I had planned out here today. As I said, I might try and get those zucchinis in, but I'll do that later in the afternoon rather than in the dead of the day, because it'll be too sunny. So I might get them out a bit later in the day. Now, this has been a really rambling video with not a whole lot of substance, so when I put it all together, we'll see how much I want to share. I did contemplate doing a live, but honestly, the idea of a live in my situation is that I just don't know what's going on enough to be able to do that. Like, anything could happen, and yeah. So this was basically my version of a live without answering any questions, but I try and answer all the questions in the comments, so, you know. So yeah, we'll put this together, and that, I don't know what this video was supposed to be, but it ended up being just a garden ramble, so I'll put it up. Anyone who wants to watch it can, and I will try and get some voiceovers done this afternoon once it cools down a bit more. and Darryl's back. And oh, here's my seeding square. I mentioned the square foot garden seeding square. So I got this one cheap on, I think I got it on Temu, to be honest, when I did that Temu haul that I got the credit for. So I got that to have a look at, and I've been using it just to mark out the squares, basically. I haven't really been putting seeds in the holes. I found that a little bit awkward, but I have been using it to mark out where a square foot is for each plant. So like for things like tomatoes and that, doing 1 per square foot and things like that. So, which is why I think I could get away with 3 in those buckets of the watermelons and pumpkins. Maybe 2 pumpkins, 3 watermelons. I don't know. We'll have to see. But thank you for joining me again today, and I will see you soon. And thank you everyone who has reached out to make sure that I was feeling okay. And yeah, I'll see you next time. Bye guys.